Hey, Senda.
Hey, Phil.
Do you want to talk about how to use relationships, but not hang someone over a cliff or have them threaten to leave? Other ways that we could do it that are non-stressful on the relationship?
Wait, that's a thing that exists?
Oh, please. You know better than that. And welcome to another fine episode of Panda's Talking Games. I am one of your hosts, Phil.
And I am your other host, Senda.
And we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the topic for tonight. So I just want to let you guys know that you'll be listening to this when it drops on the 12th of July. But we here at Pandas are taking a 2-week summer hiatus for relaxing and kind of unwinding. And so we'll be off the air the following 2 weeks. So your episodes for the week of the 19th, the week of the 26th, those will not be in your feed. So do not panic. We're not going anywhere. We just took a little vacation. We will return with a new episode on the week of August 2nd. Mm-hmm. Did I do that correctly?
I think so. I'm hoping You're looking at a calendar because I'm not.
I am looking at a calendar.
Cool. Then I believe you.
I said all Mondays.
I
believe our show drops on Mondays,
It definitely
right?
does, yes.
Okay.
Well
so
done.
then I am correct. We are recording this on the 5th of July.
Yes.
Which means that it will drop on the 12th of July.
Correct.
Which means that when we don't record on the 12th and the 19th, there will not be episodes on the week of the 19th and the 26th.
Correct.
Ergo, when we record again on the 26th, there'll be an episode on the 2nd.
Correct, yes.
Huzzah. I have understood our recording and drop schedule correctly.
Well done.
So that's our little bit of housekeeping. Don't mind us. Everything's okay. It's just summertime. And, sometimes we just unplug and recharge.
And there's lots of stuff with kids and stuff because summer.
Exactly. So we're just we're going to chill for 2 weeks.
We'll
be back in August. And then we'll be back with a brand new topic. In the meantime, don't stop sending us ideas. We are always, we'll talk about it at the end of the show, but we are always in support of getting new ideas for shows. Which brings us to an idea that wound up in our, Wound up in our mailbox.
Yeah.
And we're here to address it. So why don't you tell us what our topic was?
Sure. So this was an email from Paul who said, and this is going to be a little bit long because I'm going to read you the whole thing. So buckle up. Paul said, "Hi, Senda and Phil. A while back, the amazing Judd Carlman of Daydreaming About Dragons talked about a game of Burning Wheel he ran where a player chose to be married but didn't make the relationship with their spouse one of their beliefs. In Burning Wheel, beliefs are meant to be challenged, so the fact that this wasn't a belief meant that it could be something else. The downtime interactions with the character's spouse became a way for the character to recharge, reset, and process the events happening in the rest of the game. The classic adversarial GM-era take was that players should not fill out relationship boxes on their character sheets. It was just asking the GM to mess with you. Not fridging your players' characters' NPC relatives, friends, or lovers as entry-level stakes. Show me how you use player relationships in ways other than stressing them to move the plot forward. Thanks for the podcast and game on."
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the email. I'm excited. Burning Wheel is a game that I have always looked at but never played. But I understand the game, so I understand the context of tonight's topic. So yeah, we want to talk about relationships, and we are from past episodes, we are huge fans of having relationships in games, right? We are definitely against lone wolf characters. Our characters are always in relationships. And I know for you, the messier the relationship, the better.
It's
right?
true.
So,
I usually use relationships with my characters as ways to create pressure systems to like cause them to react in different ways because they have to take action to protect that relationship or that other character. But that doesn't mean fridging, just to be clear, because that, as Paul said, entry level stakes.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about those that term in a moment, fridging. But yeah, we are definitely fans of it. But we're going to talk to Paul's topic. We could do a whole topic on how to properly place pressure and stress relationships, and we may just do a future topic, especially if you guys are interested in it. If you are, drop us a line in the usual contact spaces and let us know. But let's define a few things to kind of set up our topic of non-stressed relationships. So first of all, a relationship is a connection between two people, right? So this relationship could be romantic, right? So this could be two partners, spouses, lovers, those kinds of things. It could be platonic. So it could just be like, two good friends, rivals. It could also be familial, right? So it could be brother and sister, cousins, those kinds of things, right? There are many different types of relationships in games. But ultimately, when we get down to it, a relationship is just a connection between two people.
Yes.
Okay, and then that relationship will have some sort of tone and theme to it, and all of those things, right? Are they bitter rivals? Are they best friends? Are they collaborators? Are they lovers? Are they former lovers? Right? Like the nature of their relationship will also tell us something about how this connection is formed between them and how they act, in regards to it.
Yeah.
Stressed relationships are when an issue creates a strain or tension onto the relationship, right? So it's fine if you're rivals. You can have a rivalry that's not stressed, but let's say that a single position opens up in your university for a tenure track position that you're both up for, right? Now these rivals may be strained because they're both now stressing to get into that position ahead of the other one, right? Or maybe it's two researchers, both of them trying to get the same breakthrough before the other. If it's lovers, maybe it's, the discovery that one lover has a secret gambling habit, has gambled away a bunch of money that now has created a financial tension over this relationship. And the thing with stressed...
I've run that game. Sorry.
Sure. No.
I didn't play it. I ran it. Carry on. The thing with stress.
Yeah. And so the thing with stress is it requires action to fix. It requires like you're going to have to do something to bring the relationship from stressed to non-stressed.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last term is the one that you mentioned before, which is fridged. This is a term that has a absolute negative connotation to it. It comes from a Green Lantern comic where the Green Lantern's girlfriend was killed and stuffed inside a fridge as a way to make him angry. It was basically to show off the bad guy being bad kind of thing. But the term fridged has now just kind of become a general term, meaning the lazy practice of killing off a minor character to motivate or torture the main character.
Yeah.
Right. And it is a negative connotation and it is lazy. Right. Yep. So, like, oh, you have an uncle? Cool. I killed him. Now you hate the goblins. Right. Like you just fridged the uncle.
Yes.
Although I will say in comic books and in other places, fridged has often been referenced to women who in comic book writing in the past have gotten the short end of the straw as women minor characters have all sorts of terrible things happen to them to motivate superheroes. It's pretty misogynistic and, pretty old fashioned and hopefully a thing that's moving to the past. In your RPGs, fridged, regardless of gender, is just a lazy way to create motivation or anger towards something by just killing something that the players like.
Yep.
Right. And it is kind of lazy because, one, if a character liked something and invested in it, killing it has taken that away from them.
Yeah, especially if it's the kind of situation that fridging is, which is like they're not there. And then they come home and then their wife is like, dead on the floor or whatever, right? Like you didn't give them an opportunity to react, to interfere, to save an NPC that they obviously created specifically to care about, all of that. No good.
Exactly. All right. So cool. So we're defining those things because we now need to, because typically when people talk about relationships, frigid or stressed is kind of how you use a relationship to motivate a character, right? So you apply some stress to a relationship. This causes the character to have to do something in order to fix that relationship. You fridge someone. Again, that's really lazy, but obviously people have done this in order to motivate a character. But there must be other reasons why it would be fun to have a relationship, right? Like there has to be other things that you can do with a relationship other than just like put it under stress and then try to go fix it. Like there are things, and I'm saying there must be other things. There are other things you can do. We are going to explore them tonight, and we're actually going to look at it in two different facets. We're going to talk about narratively, so talking about how you can do this in a story. Or in the narrative fabric of your game. And then we're going to talk about it mechanically, which I think mechanically is probably even more interesting. Like narrative, like you can come up, we've come up with a couple of good ways to use some relationships, but I think mechanically, and we'll pull some examples from some games where some games have done some really smart things with relationships. And then having done all that, we'll show you how to kind of work that into your own games. If you're not playing the games that we highlight as examples, but we'll show you how to kind of tease that together.
Yeah.
Sound cool?
Yeah, it does. I will just say as a kicker to the mechanical part, the reason that we're going to get to the games that we're going to get to in the mechanical section, what makes them really interesting is most of the time we have mechanics about specifically putting pressure on relationships, right? So
Sure.
What's different about these is that say specifically are not putting pressure on a relationship to stress or motivate it, right? Because don't get me wrong, because stress and pressure relationship stuff in games is some of my favorites.
Oh yeah. No, and it has an absolute place in gaming.
Yeah.
And it is a totally valid tool to use. Fridging is not, but stressing relationships.
Stressing relationships and using them as pressure points to make difficult decisions happen, I think is really interesting. But it's also really interesting to mechanically approach how you look at non-stressed relationships, right? Anyway, but let's start with the narrative ways that we were chatting about to use NPCs in your stories that are non-stressed relationships or relationships that don't automatically develop stress by the fact of being in the story, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first one is the mission giver. So like whatever the relationship that they have to the character, this is one of the things that they can do during the story that helps move the plot forward and gives them a purpose in the story to keep coming back up and interacting with everybody that does not have to do with pressure or stress on the relationship, right? So we say mission giver, and that might mean, the chief, like the commander of the Knights unit that you are in, but it could also mean your wife, because she, goes to the market and overhears everything and comes back and tells you about a really good hit to go, break into tonight, whatever it is, depends on the game type, right? But so it can be whatever that relationship is. It could be a familial, it could be like, romantic, could be any of those things, but they can be the person who keeps coming back in the game because they are finding and giving you missions in whatever capacity.
Yeah, and I mean, the mission giver is a role that kind of initiates a new story, right? So like if you're playing a game that has a lot of mission-based, like a core loop that's more mission-based, setting situation. Let's do situation, not core loop.
Sure.
If your game has a situation that's more mission based, as in your group of elite characters go on missions to do X, Y, and Z, then having like a relationship with someone who essentially points you in the direction of those missions is a great relationship, because one, it's going to happen frequently.
Yep.
Two, it is, you can use it as a tool to set the tone of an upcoming game. So how the past mission went is going to influence their relationship with you, and what the current mission is might also have an impact on how you interact with them. Like if you are, the elite hotshot team that has never failed a mission, that tone of relationship is very different than the ragtag group that, needs a win. Otherwise they're getting disbanded.
Yeah.
Right. Like that, like it flavors that, it flavors that, and having the relationship, where you have the mission giver, like gives you something to do. I've been binging the NBC TV show The Blacklist, and the relationship between Raymond Reddington and Elizabeth Keene. Like in many cases, Reddington is the mission giver, where he gives up a blacklist name to Keene, and then Keene and the rest of the FBI unit then goes and like investigates and hunts down this person. Often because Raymond Reddington has another plan, and having this person like captured, found, eliminated, or whatever plays into that, and it helps them. But it's still the mission giver, and it's still a relationship that exists between these two characters, and a pretty complicated one as the season goes on. Cool.
I will take your word for it, because I haven't seen the show.
Oh, it's a good show. I like it.
Cool.
I like it. It's good.
All right, the next one on the list is Safe Harbor. So Safe Harbor is the kind of character that you go to when you need a safe place, whether that's like to just process what just happened in the game, if something intense or traumatic or bad or even good, whatever it was, happened in the game. It might be someone that you go to talk to about that.
In Avengers 2, this is Hawkeye's wife.
Oh yeah, it is.
Right? Like after the botched mission where Hulk goes berserk and Iron Man has to put him down, and they're on the run, right? They're laying low. They need a place to regroup, collect themselves, like everything you said, process what happened. Mm-hmm. And they, if we were playing in a role-playing game, this is where like the character who's playing Hawkeye would be like, wait, I know exactly where we're going, and set the coordinates to fly to their farm.
Right. Take me home.
Right. And the thing that we know about the Safe Harbor is just that, right? It is this relationship has the ability to take the players out of the action. Yeah. And give them time to recover, recoup, think, process, all of those things. This could be a academy friend who runs a refueling station on a lone asteroid, right? That you can just pop into.
Gosh, it's oh my God. Oh wow, words. That's the help. There's a microphone in front of my face. Right. It's what they wanted Cloud City to be, but it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, I mean that's the Act 2 to Act 3 twist, right?
Yeah, so the twist is when it doesn't, but that's when you put stress on the relationship because it isn't actually that anymore. So we have to talk about Act 1, where it is that.
Yeah, I mean, heading from Act 1 into Act 2, as they are looking for a place to go, Lando.
Yes.
Lando system?
Not a system. System? Yeah.
It's a man. Yeah, so Safe Harbor is definitely a function/feature that a character, like a relationship that your character has, can provide. And it's a pretty useful one because characters are often embroiled in all sorts of stuff, right? They show up, they can show up injured, equipment damaged, low on spells, with a bunch of clues, but haven't had the time or safety to process like what the clues mean, like all of those things. And so having a relationship that provides a safe harbor is like a huge benefit to the characters.
It is, and it's a place that they will go back to again. So part of the reason that you want your NPC to play some specific role and have a purpose in your game is so that your characters will have a reason to go back and talk to them, or a reason to show up on their doorstep, right? So being a safe harbor is a good reason because they will show up there. There will be a moment sometime.
100%.
Yeah, where they have to have that space. So that is what that is about. The last one that we came up with was an intelligence source. So that would be, somebody who actually has more information about what's going on and can share it with people. And I used to play a game in which this person was known as the obvious hint man, and he was the guy who would tell us what we had missed. But, you can do that with more subtlety and more relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But again, so this can be anybody, but it is a person that they can go back to, who will actually be able to give them more information. And sometimes that ends up being like a professional relationships, but not always, right?
Yeah. I mean, it could be, your, in your Cyberpunk game, it could be the guy who works behind the bar, but like was a former runner connected, he's connected into what's, into the scene, and has all sorts of info on corporations and other runners and things like past jobs and things like that.
Well, and honestly, let's make it more interesting. He works behind the bar, so he picks up even more information because people still chat with him about it, but he's also your boyfriend.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, you have to have a relationship with them, right? So, So, and I'll even abstract it one more. We wrote this down as intelligence source, but let's just say source, because there are other things besides intel information that are important to characters. So this source could provide intelligence. This source could provide equipment.
Yep. Yeah.
So this could be, an alchemist who, the players have a relationship with, who's able to provide them healing potions. Mm-hmm. Maybe super important when they're low level.
Right. Or they don't have a healer in the group.
Yeah. This is a group that the character's brother is in mage school, but at this point can only do alchemy stuff, and so whips them up some healing potions on the side.
Yeah.
Right, for them to take with them on their adventures.
Yeah, and then wants to hear about it when they get back. Did it work, and how much did it heal you? Yeah, and what did it taste like? And did it blow anything up? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, you can these are just examples, right? And this is by no means a finite list of things you can do, but these are just ideas of ways that you could use a relationship without stress. You don't have to stress any of those.
No.
For the character to have good interactions, and in the terms of the story, in terms of getting something, in terms of the story that would help them, right? The mission giver gets them started on jobs. The safe harbor gives them a place to recover. In between beats of action, the source provides them things that they are missing in order to advance the story forward, be it equipment, intelligence, whatever. Those kinds of things, right? So those are different ways to have relationships that actually provide something in the story that is of value, that doesn't require the relationship to be under any stress. Could you stress these relationships?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Should you stress these relationships at some point in the game? Possibly.
Yeah.
Depending on what the focus of the game is, and depending on where the player wants to go story-wise, yes, you could put stress on any one of those, and also make it an interesting story, but you don't have to.
Yeah, the interesting thing about all three of these ones that we bring up is I think there are plenty of games that have, one or more of these in them. They just aren't necessarily an NPC that also has a strong relationship to the player characters. So it can be, your intelligence source or just your source might just be the random dude, in a shop somewhere, and you don't have a relationship with them. But it's more interesting to bring them back again and again when there is a relationship there, right? So a lot of this is consider some of the roles that NPCs continuously play in your games, and then see if you can make that someone who's actually more tightly tied into your group of player characters, just so that relationship plays out, not necessarily in a stressful way, but that they keep getting to interact with that character.
So I'll even tack on to that you can help that along by using good leading questions.
Yeah.
Right? So you have an intelligence source. Tell me who this person was to you when you guys were both in the academy together.
Yeah.
Right? That then creates a relationship right there with just that leading question. So absolutely, definitely ways to do that. All right, cool. We're going to now turn our focus on to the mechanical.
Yes.
which is games that have taken the idea of relationships and not only has a narrative component of like what the relationship is, but actually apply mechanics from the game to using the relationship within the game.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to lead off. I'll have you do the. We'll go back and forth. I'll do the first one, and the third one you do the second one.
Okay.
I
Sounds
think
good.
based on since I played both the games on the first and the third.
Yes.
Okay. So you played the other one, but I think you played it a little looser than I did.
Yeah, I was going to tell you. Once you tell the story, I'm going to tell you the story of how I broke it.
Yes. So the mechanic that I'll mention is from Tales from the Loop or Things from the Flood. Those are essentially the same game. And that is the anchor character. So the anchor character is an NPC that you have a relationship with that the character goes to in order to clear their conditions. So throughout the course of the game, the character acquires conditions. Conditions actually make it harder for the character to achieve things. And too many conditions in Things from the Flood will kill you. In Tales from the Loop, it'll just like knock you out. But the way you get rid of them is that you go to your anchor and you have a scene with them, an anchor scene where you actually have a moment in that relationship. And then in doing so, you then get to clear your conditions, refresh your character, and go. And so a lot of times in the games I played, if it was a particularly long mystery, we would wind up with these anchor scenes kind of mid-game, where the players would clear a few conditions before they would head into the climax. Or if it was a relatively short mystery, we would do the anchor scenes at the end, the kids having been kind of worn down and tired from, solving some mystery or stopping something from happening. And then, we would go around the table and do the anchor scenes where the characters would then get to kind of clear their conditions by having those moments. And those were, so mechanically, right, this is, it provides aid. Right? It essentially, quote, heals the character for having the scene. From a story perspective, these were fantastic scenes in the game. Like they were both at times funny, at times very poignant and serious, like very dramatic. Like it really varied, and some of them varied on the relationships that the characters had. Like our rocker, his anchor was the guy who owned the burned out ex-musician who owned the music store in town. So he like used to tour with rock bands. Now he sells like clarinets to elementary school kids. And his name was Silas, and he was kind of like, a little bit of a druggy, burnt out kind of thing. And he never understood anything that the rocker said correctly. Like he always misinterpreted it in a funny way. But it would let Bob's character kind of unload everything that happened. And then the guy would be like, oh, that's crazy. That's capitalism for you, right? And then he just he'd give some like weird off the wall advice, often kind of inappropriate to Bob's age, like about girls and things like that. And then like on their way. But it was really fun. And, there was, it turned out to be a really great tool in the game because the way the game works is like you rack up conditions throughout play. And then you have to have the scene to get rid of them. So it mechanically it's helpful. And then two, from kind of a situation and story beat perspective, these scenes get like pulled into the game because you need them to move on. Super smart.
Yeah, very good. We managed to follow those rules for a little bit.
I would like to say that I think you played a game called Tales from the Loop. I don't think you played Tales from the Loop.
I think you're probably right. We used the D6s and the skills, and I had chewing gum. Yeah.
Yes. I think you kind of departed a lot from
at some
the rest
point,
of the rules.
We really started on the rules, and then at some point we did the thing, which is what happens with my group, and we just like hit some sort of like ramp, and then
which I'm gonna say is comical because that game doesn't actually have a lot of rules. So the fact that you jettisoned one of the 7 rules in the game is actually like it's pretty telling for your group and its ability to adhere to any.
Oh, but it was really good because if I remember correctly, and I could be misremembering, I'm pretty sure that my anchor person was my dad. And but I could be misremembering that, so maybe we didn't break it quite this much. But so forgive me if you're listening to this, Quincy. Maybe you remember better than I do. I think it was my dad. So the thing is that somewhere about 3/4 of the way through the game, it turned out that he was kind of evil. So I stopped talking to him.
So that actually breaks, I think, one of the rules, which is like your anchor is always a safe harbor for your character.
Right. And he wasn't.
Yeah, you should have actually went and got another anchor.
I don't think I did. But we also left town at that point, so it wasn't like anybody was talking to their anchors anymore.
Right. That only begs the question, did you ever clear any conditions? Did you?
No, we just got to the end of the game because then we just got through the climax and then like there were dinosaurs coming out of the road all right,
we're going to move on to the next we'll move on to the next game before we get another replay.
Anyway, yep, sorry. Anyway, rules. Oh dear. Yeah, so one of the other ways that you can use a relationship mechanically in a positive, non-stressed way, right, is as an aspect in Fate. So if you write an NPC into one of your aspects, for example, like my partner is my rock, right? Then you've written in something that is both true in the story and also mechanically something that you can derive benefit from. Right. So you can you could decide to spend a fate point and get a +2 because your partner is present and cheering you on or whatever in whatever situation you're in, and be able to get that +2 or that reroll because they're there and they're your rock. Right. So like mechanically you can engage that because it is true narratively, which is one of those things that I love.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even have to be there, right? Like,
right, as long as you can engage some way. Yep. It was just the easiest. The easiest example was if they're standing over my shoulder, then they're there for me to rely on, right?
Yeah. The thing is, the second you create it as an aspect, one, the partner is now an NPC in the story.
Yep.
Like that just happened because you put it into the aspect.
You wrote it down.
Yep. And then my partner is my rock. You have defined the relationship, which now also remains true and stays true unless you change the aspect.
Yeah. So that's not going to shift even if you end up in a difficult situation unless you, the player, change it.
Yeah, which isn't, then there are mechanisms where characters can actually change their aspects and things like that. But yeah, it is, it's cool because it gets to be both narrative, and mechanically true, which is always the thing about aspects in Fate.
Yeah, which is very good. Anyway.
All right, my last example for this one is going to be from a game. It's a slightly less well-known game called Houses of the Blooded, but I really thought this was actually a kind of fun. I thought this was kind of a fun mechanic in Houses of the Blooded. If you're not familiar with the game, it's kind of like the anti D&D. Like you play this noble, and you kind of like exist with like. Political intrigue and going to parties and kind of things like that. Like you don't fight in dungeons or anything like that.
It's like a comedy of manners, essentially.
No, it's very dramatic. Okay. There's romance and backstabbing. I probably actually would like the game quite a bit.
I'm really interested so far. Carry on.
I mean, I'll just tell you as a sidebar. Like one of the really interesting things is like colors convey messages. So like you have to be like super careful. Like I believe if you wear red, it means that you are either in love or seeking vengeance. And I believe in that species language, there is only the inflection of a syllable that is the difference between being in love and seeking vengeance. So anyway, It's a thing. But the other part of the game is that like each season you go to like various social events and kind of socially maneuver against each other and against NPCs and things like that. And then the other things you do is you actually build your kingdom. So you have like your own land. And there are these things called season actions where you can raise an army, you can build, additions like onto your castle, all of those things. if your character has a spouse, the spouse gets their own season action and has access to any season action that you have access to. So basically, each season, if you have a spouse, you get whatever. I'm just going to say 2 because I don't remember what the actual number is. And people who've played the game, I don't want them jumping all over me. But let's just say that each season you got an action. If you have a spouse, they also get an action. So now, like, you get a bigger benefit in the game because you have this relationship. And just because you're married does not actually necessarily mean you are in love. You could be deeply loved and devoted to each other. It could have been a very political relationship that you like. The two of you have banded together to kind of like move forward up the social ladder, but are having your own romances and stuff on the sides. It's a game, all right. Like, you probably would like it. It's actually a pretty, it's actually a pretty rules light game, and more narrative. We'll talk about it at some point.
Sure.
You might dig it.
Yeah.
But it is, but the mechanical advantage for having a spouse, so having, in this case, a very specific relationship, right? A relationship that involves marriage, is that you get this mechanical bonus during the season actions where your spouse can actually do stuff on behalf of, you and your kingdom, which is pretty neat.
Sounds like it would be a pretty big deal because it's the season actions, right? Like
it is a pretty big deal. You actually can like advance your kingdom faster if you have a spouse. So there is a incentive in getting a spouse in the game or starting with one because you want those additional actions. And then, it's another NPC that the GM can, use as well.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. So those are some examples of how to do it in a game. What if you're playing a game where you don't have those things, but you might want to have some mechanical benefits, right? So we're all for, making up some rules here. And I kind of brainstormed a few ideas that kind of are inspired by the examples that we gave above. Do you want to just kind of, do you want me to just jump on the first one and then you take one? Or?
Sure. Go for it.
Okay. So the first one I did was like a healing bonus, recovery bonus, right? So like when you go to this person's,
This
so
being
be it their
essentially inspired by the safe harbor type person, yeah?
It's a safe harbor plus it's, what is it? It's safe harbor plus it's provides aid.
Sure.
Right. So it's kind of like the anchor. So like when you go to this character, you get some sort of healing / recovery bonus. So like maybe in like a DCC game, when you go to this person, like you gain like an extra hit die of recovery dice. Or if it's a Call of Cthulhu game, I don't know how sacrilegious this is, but maybe you gain like back a point of sanity. Or maybe like, luck, I think is a more fluid, I think sanity is a one direction, like it just goes down.
Luck, down. Yeah.
Luck might be a thing, right? So in some way, going to see them helps you recover. So like in whatever terms recover is in your game. So if it's a healing check, then it's like a bonus to your healing check. If it's like you roll dice to get back hit points, then like it's a plus or an extra die to that roll, something like that. But like you could hack that in to be kind of thing where it's like when I go see this person or when we all go see this person, like we all heal up a little quicker, or they have a really cool dry dock. And so when we bring our starship there, we get a bonus to our roll to make repairs on our starship.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yep.
So that is definitely one way you could hack this into your game. What's another way?
You can basically gain some sort of inspiration or token, right? So we say inspiration being sort of like maybe you get to roll with advantage on something that involves this, right? Or you get +2 depending on what edition you're playing. Or maybe you you get a Benny on taking an action. involved with stuff, whatever it is. So because you saw them, you have some kind of advantage that pertains to that relationship, or maybe the information or the equipment that they gave you, if they're a source, right? Then you gain some mechanical benefit from having had that interaction with them, because now you have more stuff or more information, or you've been encouraged, because they're important to you, whatever it is.
Yeah. And the idea here is that if your game has a currency, right? So 5th edition has the inspiration points. You said Benny from Savage Worlds. You could even
get a
do
fate
this
point.
with fate points or whatever. But if your game has a currency, then this relationship provides a currency point, like whatever that is. Just the nature of the relationship or whatever gives you, like, when you engage in a scene with this relationship, you get, this token that you can then go forth and do more heroic things, right? So the idea being is that, like, you go and see your beloved, and in talking to them and spending time and walking through the garden with them, you are, your fears are resolved, you are more committed, and you're swashbuckling. You get an extra Benny for more, like, heroic swashbuckling.
More buckling of your swash.
Yes.
You are literally inspired. Maybe you go see your mentor, who, ran the sword fighting school, and you run through some stuff and polish up your moves, and you're feeling more confident,
Yeah. I mean, it could be very literal, like you said. It could be very abstract, like just, going and spending time with your beloved inspires you to do, great feats of daring and things like that. Daring do, right? So it could be very concrete, could be very literal, could be very abstract. Doesn't matter. The idea is that it feeds into that token economy. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the last one?
The last one is you're going to get some sort of bonus, right, for being in a relationship, like a saving throw bonus. Like, being in this relationship gives you greater will, so your will save goes up. Or once a game, you get a +2 to any one of your saves, as long as, like, you have spent some time with the, your previously spent time with the person in that relationship. So, maybe it's a reflex save because you spent time with your fighting master.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Like, when you go and you go spend an afternoon with your fighting master, you guys do some sparring, some talking, whatever, you get this, like, +2 bonus. So, like, next time, something, like a fireball rolls your way, you kind of remember this cool roll that your mentor taught you, and you roll out and you're, half damage, quarter damage, whatever, safe. Maybe spending time, making love to your partner, gives you extra willpower, so that as, like, the mind flares trying to drill through your mind, you're like, no, I cannot fall prey to this, my love for my spouse, I cannot lose them by losing myself. And, like, you dig down and find that willpower to push the mind flare out, kind of thing. Right.
I'm just imagining these situations and enjoying him. Go, carry on.
No, it's fine. Yeah. So the idea here is like, let's give a bonus to, something that's going to happen when you're adventuring for time spent in your relationship.
Yes.
Right. So this isn't healing anything. This is the idea that, like, look, you engaged in this relationship. That was cool. We made some cool drama or had some good acting at the table. But in addition, like, spending time with them also helps you in this way.
It bolsters you in a going forward way.
Yeah, exactly. Like, maybe you spent most of your time talking to your sword master about, philosophy, but you still pick up the +2 reflex bonus because you did, like, some sparring while you were talking about philosophy, or you sparred for a little bit and then, you sat and discussed philosophy while, you drank, like, wine or something afterwards. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's, and what that winds up doing is then it creates this kind of loop where if you want the bonus, you're going to engage in the scene, right? Because that's cool.
Yep.
And so, then what you do is kind of like in Tales from the Loop, you're going to have players, like, before they go off on an adventure, wanting to have these scenes because they're going to want to pick up that bonus.
Yep.
Same thing's true with like the inspiration token economy. Like I absolutely, if I'm in town, I'm going to definitely go like woo my lover to pick up a point of inspiration.
I definitely want to go pick up a token before I'm leaving town again, because I can use that for all kinds of things.
Exactly.
And also, if you're coming back into town and we're using a dungeon sort of, basic plot structure idea happening here. But if you have been out in the far reaches of the galaxy where things are pretty rough, then you're coming back. Every time you come back, if you're going to heal, you probably want to go to the place where you can heal better, unless there's a really strong reason not to, right? You're always going to go back to that place after. So it's interesting because really making healing better in one place usually means people are going to go there after they did a thing. And giving them a token or inspiration or like a bonus on whatever thing is something people are usually going to do before they go out. So you may consider like how you want that NPC to work a little bit in terms of like when do you want those scenes to occur in your story, or if you care, right? Or if you want to mix match and have both, right? Also cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there's some just general tips for how to kind of hack in some mechanics for giving benefits of having a relationship that are beyond just story, right? Story's great, but if you actually want to put a little mechanical, spin or incentive on it, like you can do that as well with some of the tips that we've given you here.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I think we've done a good job addressing ways to have relationships that are non-stress that'll do interesting things in games.
I think
right?
so.
I think that's what we set out to do.
Yeah, that's totally what we set out to do. Sometime let us know if you want us to talk about ways to appropriately stress / use relationships as pressure points without doing the fridge thing, right?
Yeah, totally. In order for us to get to the closing of the show, we got to first talk about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network. Do you have a show in mind?
I sure do. Are you ready?
I do.
Awesome. Let's do it. So on Bonus Experience, Ray and Monica are two old friends exploring gameplay and design through the lens of diversity, while also sharing some of the dumbest humor that gaming has to offer, and trying a wide array of sparkling waters. You never really know which ones you're going to get. Just stick with it. See which one's the best.
It's pretty funny. Very good. Senda, how do people find us on the internet?
Well, you can find us on Twitter at Pandas Talk Games. You can find us on the Misdirected Mark forums, which is forums.misdirectedmark.com. You can do what Paul did and drop us an email, panda@misdirectedmark.com, or you can hunt us down on the Tiki-Talkies. Which is just entertaining. Please do. We don't have a show one there, so you have to find us as individual people, but send us a tiki-talkie. It's fine. And then once people find us in one of those places, what can they do with that information?
Yeah, by all means, send us ideas for shows. We talk about this all the time. I'll try to keep it brief, but we pride ourselves in not coming up with our own topics, because what we're really here for is to help you have more better games. And the way that we help you have more better games is for you to tell us what's on your mind about gaming, and then we'll just kind of go off and talk about it, and hopefully some of the advice we give, some of the ideas that we present will help you out and produce more better games. So do that. Whether it's a question, whether it's a topic, whether it's something you saw that you just want to hear our thoughts on, it doesn't even matter. Just send it to us in all the ways that Senda said to send it to us. And we're pretty adept 5 years in at making a show out of almost anything.
Really?
So we can do it.
Yeah.
So send us your thoughts. We greatly appreciate them. If you like what we're doing here elsewhere on the Misdirected Mark Network, please consider supporting our Patreon campaign. Go to patreon.com/MMP. Patrons get access to the Slack room for life. It has been my safe haven all through the pandemic. It remains one of my favorite places to still go on a daily basis, just to kind of see how everybody's doing and see what everybody's talking about. It's fantastic. In addition to the Slack room and our Friday luncheons, right? So if you're in the Slack room, you can you'll catch on to our Friday luncheons that we do with all of us who are still working from home, get together on Fridays and have lunch together on Eastern time. It's whatever meal is your time zone, but it's Eastern because I'm the one who
for
organizes
me.
it.
Yeah.
And it's lunch for me. And that's very selfish and very East Coast centric.
Everyone's standard time. That's EST.
Everyone's standard time. It's my lunchtime, and you're coming to join. So bring your breakfast, second breakfast, your 5 o'clock beer if you're in the UK, whatever it is, just bring it and enjoy some company. You also get access to the you get the after show from the Misdirected Mark, which is like literally 15 to 20 minutes of whatever's on our mind when we hit the end of the show. And you get the Bamboo Lounge, which is the nonsense that happens after we stop being professional on the mics, which is going to happen in just mere minutes.
Yes, seconds. Seconds, really.
So anyway, do that. We thank you immensely for backing the Patreon campaign. It is what makes everything possible around here, from hosting to launching new shows to all of that stuff. It is all done because you are supporting the work that we're doing. So we thank you immensely for your support. If you are unable to support the Patreon campaign, we totally get it. And if you are supporting the Patreon campaign, thank you again. But there is another thing you can do. We really always need new listeners. And while Senda's going to tell you a way to get complete strangers to listen to the show, honestly, anything you can do to help to get people that you know, people you're connected to in social media, whatever, to listen to the show, that's fantastic. One of the easiest ones you can do is anytime somebody posts that tweet that's like, hey, what podcast do you listen to for role-playing games? Drop our name. One, we'll see it. So if you tag us,
so warm and fuzzy inside. It's
sure, but
like
we'll also jump into
happiness.
kind of like talk about the show or answer questions
yes.
or anything anyway, right?
Yes.
So we'll be super helpful, but it helps immensely. To get individual people listening to the show, we joke about it. I think we joke about it, but I'm also not joking about it when I say if you listen to us, you will love us. I hope that's true. I think that's true for a number of people who've popped into the show and then wound up binging the entire catalog.
We love you. We love you back.
Heroic. So we love you immensely for all of that. There is another thing you can do that helps strangers find us. Still important, though I argue that helping, jumping on Twitter and dropping our name into a thread of shows is even more important. But that there is that one more thing you could do. What is that thing?
Well, you could leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or the podcatcher of your choice. Every new review we get really is just like telling a stranger, hey, you should listen to this show, which is great. And they also give us warm, fuzzy feelings in our panda tummies. So we super duper appreciate all of them and everybody who's already left one. Thank you so much. So very, very, very much.
Super helpful.
Super appreciate it. Yeah. And, yeah. Thank you. Leave us a review. Thank you.
Say, Senda, show me what aspect you're going to create for your Fate Trek character that's going to make an interesting relationship in our upcoming game.
This show is a joint production of She's a Super Geek and Misdirected Mark Productions, the media arm of Encoded Designs.
Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh?
Bloopy. Ha ha. This time, click with success.
There we go.
Click success.
Huzzah.
Huzzah.
All right.
You must make leather mugs at the Renaissance Festival. Huzzah.
Huzzah. Alrighty. You want to do this?
Yeah. We should do this.
I mean, we have Bamboo Lounge to talk about all sorts of cool stuff.
All sorts
afterwards.
of things. Cool. Okay,
We're
cool.
talking about apartments and skirts.
Cool. Oh, yes. Yes.
All right.
I'm lifting this up because you're going to ask me to say the topic, and I'm going to be like, I made the font so small. Why?
I hear you. Are you prepared?
I am now prepared.
Okay.
Should I read the whole thing? I'm going to read the whole thing. Yeah, go for it. Okay.
Do, 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 do.